What if Medusa wasn't the monster of the story but the evidence? Evidence of power, fear, and a curse that says more about the world around her than about who she was. Today, we're asking, what does Medusa's curse really mean? We know the outline. A beautiful maiden becomes a snake-haired terror, whose gaze turns people to stone. A hero slays her. The end. But Greek myths evolve across centuries, and Medusa's story shifts with them. If we follow those shifts, we find a pattern. Every version of Medusa reflects a different struggle over power, gender, and control. So let's trace the versions and listen for what the curse is actually saying. Let's start at the beginning, or close to it. In early sources like Hesiod, Medusa is simply one of the Gorgon's monstrous sisters, born from primordial forces. No temple, no assault, no transformation. She's a dangerous being whose death equips heroes with trophies. In this telling, the curse isn't personal, it's cosmic. She embodies the chaotic edges of the world, the kind of terror that makes heroes necessary. But this is just the baseline, and soon the story gets far more human. Fast forward to later versions, especially Ovid's, where the knot tightens. Medusa begins as a beautiful, mortal priestess of Athena. Poseidon assaults her in Athena's temple. The goddess, enraged, punishes Medusa by transforming her hair into snakes and giving her the petrifying gaze. At first glance, it looks like divine cruelty. But myth is an X-ray. This version exposes how ancient societies handled violations, punish the visible woman, preserve the structure. The curse becomes a cultural reflex turn harm into silence by making the harmed person untouchable, unspeakable, literally hard to look at. And that reframing pushes us to ask, who benefits when the victim becomes the monster? Why stone? Because the gaze is power. In a world where men look and decide, Medusa's look returns the favor too powerfully. Her eyes make objectification literal. They turn subjects into objects. The punishment flips the script but traps her in it. She gains the most dangerous visibility, one that freezes others and isolates her. The curse is a paradox granting power that guarantees exile. And that paradox sets the stage for the hero who enters next. Perseus defeats Medusa without ever meeting her eyes. He uses a reflective shield, guided tools, borrowed weapons. He's clever, but notice the method. Power is acceptable when it's indirect, mediated, properly controlled. A woman's direct gaze is lethal. A man's reflected gaze becomes strategy. Even her head, once severed, keeps working for him, mounted as a weapon, annexed into the toolkit of order. The curse's meaning sharpens here. Raw female power is terror. Domesticated power is heroism. And that logic doesn't end with the beheading. After Perseus, Athena takes Medusa's head for her aegis. The goddess of wisdom and war literally wears the monster. But look closer. The same deity who punished Medusa now turns her image into protection. The head wards off enemies. It protects cities and heroes. The curse becomes a shield for the powerful, a symbol rebranded as safety. It's the system absorbing the dangerous story and using it to guard itself. And still, the original wound remains unhealed, which leads us to the quieter parts of the myth. Medusa's blood is double-edged. From one side, a deadly poison. From the other, a healing medicine. From her neck spring Pegasus and Chrysaor, strange beauty and brute force. Even in death, she births. The myth won't let us file her under pure evil. It insists on ambiguity, harm and remedy, terror and wonder, curse and gift. This ambivalence is a key. The meaning isn't a verdict. It's a tension we're meant to hold. Over time, artists and writers shift Medusa again. Renaissance painters turn her into tragic beauty. Romantics see her as a symbol of creative terror. Modern readers view her as a survivor whose punishment exposes the cruelty of institutions. With each retelling, the curse functions like a mirror. It reflects what a culture fears most: female sexuality, violated sanctity, uncontrolled power, or the shame of blaming the vulnerable. The meaning isn't locked in antiquity. It evolves with us. So, what does the curse mean? It warns that societies often label as monstrous what they can't regulate. It shows how systems redirect accountability from gods and kings to the nearest body. It suggests that fear, when armored with ritual and law, becomes order. And it asks us to notice how easily pain gets repackaged as protection, how a victim becomes a weapon once her story serves someone else. Which circles us back to that first question: who benefits? Maybe the hardest lesson is about how to look. Perseus survives by not meeting Medusa's eyes. We often do the same with trauma and power, glancing sideways through reflections and headlines. But the myth challenges us to practice a different gaze, to see directly without petrifying, to look at suffering without turning it into an object or a tool. The antidote to the curse isn't blindness. It's a humanizing stare that doesn't freeze. Medusa's curse isn't just a mythic punishment. It's a story about who gets to define danger, who bears the cost of keeping order, and how fear dresses itself as justice. If we read her not as a monster but as a message, the stone begins to crack. The real meaning behind Medusa's curse is a question it asks each time we tell it. When we call someone monstrous, what are we protecting, and what are we refusing to see?